This is Mile High Sports.
Russell Wilson contract extension. You surprised it came down when it did? I think everybody was kind of expecting a contract extension sooner rather than later. It's been about, 3 weeks of the Walter Penner ownership group, so clearly at the top of their priority list once they fully took over the organization and whatnot. You surprised it happens before he even plays it down of football for this team?
No, I'm not. And I'm kind of glad it's done. And I think that there's a relief by George Paton, by Nathaniel Hackett, even for Russ that it's done before the regular season, which is ironic enough because just, almost a month and a half ago, we had the media barbecue, kind of talking to George Paton and Nathaniel Hackett to kind of kick off training camp, the start of it. And he was asked a question. I remember it clear as day. He was asked a question about Russ's contract, and George said, we're going to keep all this stuff in-house, and this is it. Nothing leaked out about this contract. It stayed between George Paton, Russell Wilson, his agent. That's it. Nobody else knew about it. There was no communication going on, which is good because George Paton doesn't like letting things out of the building, and I think he's so good at making sure that there's nothing that leaks. He's a firm believer in loose lips sink ships, and I'm with him. I like that there's not a lot of information coming out of Dove Valley, which is good because then I think if something like this were to leak, it would ruin negotiations.
Right.
It really would.
Well, and in the soundbite we played before you came in here, I think Russell essentially ended with, a big reason why he believes or he likes where he's at is because he believes in the people around him. The collaborative thing with Nathaniel Hackett, obviously the quarterback room, but also the ability to trust the ownership group and the general manager there in George Paton. I think I'll use the word again, relationship equity.
Hey.
I think that there's plenty of relationship equity between Russell Wilson, the front office, the organization as a whole. And, I think that's exciting when you kind of look at it from that perspective as well. Is I feel like oftentimes, especially in this day and age, player empowerment being so prominent, it seems like the player and the ownership tend to not get along sometimes. That's clearly not the case here with Russell Wilson. It was more collaborative as opposed to, one side saying something and the other saying something as well.
Well, not only that, George Paton, like Russ even told a story about George inviting him into his office to watch film on potential wide receiver prospects in the NFL draft. He said, we stumbled upon this guy, Jalen Virgil. Not Jalen Virgil. He said Montreal Washington. But Jalen Virgil is another guy that, turned heads. Obviously, he's now on the active roster. Montreal's there, and Montreal has kind of lived up to that bill. But, this is something that he didn't necessarily get in Seattle. The way the Seattle was running things was very different, and it was kind of a, top level down kind of, whatever happens at the top happens at the top. Players don't really get much input in it. But here in Denver, George Paton and Nathaniel Hackett have involved Russell Wilson in almost every discussion when it comes to, the offense, certain plays he's comfortable with. What do you think about this player? What do you think about this player? I think that's huge because I do know that Russell Wilson has, after football is over, he has ambitions of maybe owning having some ownership stake in a football team or being in the football admin side of things. He wants to be involved with the professional team. I know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know what it's a little reminiscent of, and you can't make the direct comparison because we're talking about the GOAT of GOATs here, but look at what Brady was able to do when he kind of was able to develop a similar relationship with his coaching staff. I know Arians was, maybe a little friction there, but, for the first time, Brady leaving New England, going to Tampa Bay, able to kind of put his hands on things, right? Talking about receivers, getting guys here, putting players there. It's a little bit of a similarity there in the sense that the ownership, the front office will listen to Russell Wilson. They entrust in Russell Wilson to lead this team as the quarterback. And obviously, look, you're talking about a team in Tampa that made it to a Super Bowl, was in a conference championship game, and obviously it's Brady leading that team. But, Russell Wilson is in a top elite category with Brady in regards to best quarterbacks in the NFL the last 6-7 years. So I guess I'm excited to see what Russell Wilson, the thinker, can do, being able to kind of get a blueprint here with Russell Wilson, the collaborative think with Nathaniel Hackett as well. That's what I'm excited about to see, maybe a little bit of a different part of Russell Wilson unlocked that we haven't seen before.
Oh, as you say, Mr. Unlimited.
There you go. That's
Mr. Unlimited.
Yes, sir. Hey, like I said, very well spoken, but I think the vision that Russ has, you can tell he carries himself really well. He's got a chip on his shoulder. You can definitely tell that he's got a chip on his shoulder. And he's got a lot of great motivations for what he does every day. He wakes up morning, he says, I like to beat the sun. And you love that. Like, that's going to fire you up. And look, there's Seahawks fans out there that are like, oh, yeah, they're going to regret this. I'm like, how are Seahawks fans talking right now when Geno Smith, nothing against Geno, but it's like going from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith is not even on the same atmosphere. Like, not even the same universe.
Where is this bitterness sourced from the Seahawk fan?
Sodium chloride.
Right. It's just one of those situations that I don't understand. Like, it's not that they were running him out of town, but, like, they were content with letting Russell Wilson go.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got Broncos country, who's chomping at the bit to get a quarterback like Russell Wilson in here. I just don't get how the Seahawks fan base is like so comfortable moving on from Russell Wilson. They almost think that he's washed, bad deal, paying him too much, he's too old. I don't get where these narratives are coming from Seattle's perspective.
They're salty. They're salty that Russ, wanted input. Like Russ wanted some say, and Russ deserved to have say. Like Russ brought them a Super Bowl alongside the Legion of Boom.
Went to back-to-back Super Bowls.
Russ made them relevant, made the Seahawks relevant. Especially when that Legion of Boom defense started to drop. Russell Wilson was still making plays there.
He's a 9-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, winningest QB in his first 10 years of a career in NFL history, and now the highest paid player in Broncos franchise history. I mean, the pedigree is there, right? The resume is there. And so I guess, if Seattle wanted to kind of toss him aside and he needed a new place to kind of get his mind right and start anew with this franchise, I mean, the Broncos fans are going to welcome him with open arms. And I mean, you don't trade all those players and those draft picks without the expectation of signing him to a contract extension.
Correct.
So that's where I'm not surprised in the sense that they didn't wait to see how he'd play. Obviously, I guess you are kind of rolling the dice in the sense that, you haven't technically seen him out there with the guys. He didn't play in the preseason. What happens if they hit a little bit of a lull? And that was one thing I brought up with Danny earlier in the program is like, okay, like what happens if they lose 3-4 games in a row? Like, morale maybe dips a little bit. Those are the kind of questions that I have. But the track record is there. I think, it's hard not to have confidence in this being a good deal overall for the Broncos.
Well, yeah.
And both sides,
there were some people in Seattle saying that Denver lost this trade. Like, come on, get out of here.
Crazy to me.
Get out of here. Here's the thing. Like, appreciate what Russell Wilson was able to do for your franchise for all the years that he was able to do it. Getting you to a Super Bowl, helping you win a Super Bowl, getting you to another Super Bowl. And unfortunately, if Pete Carroll just decides, hey, let's run the ball on the 1-yard line, everyone wants to blame Russell Wilson for that. I don't get it.
You think he's making that play call? He probably questioned it as much as anybody.
It's like, hey, we got Marshawn behind us. Why don't hey, punch it in?
And
but people want to blame Russ for that, and I think that's where a lot of the saltiness comes from Seattle fans. When the report came out that he wanted some input and hey, we wanted some input and some personnel, like specifically on the offensive line, because this is a dude that was getting he was probably running the most miles out of every quarterback in terms of trying to scramble to get away from pressure.
Popped by opposing teams' defenses along the way. And that's the thing is, look, Pete Carroll's a good coach. I mean, Super Bowl winning coach, but what will Pete Carroll, I think, still subscribes a little bit to that old school mentality. And obviously, for an old school guy, he does have a little bit of new age kind of tactics to him.
Yeah.
But I think, with the way that sports in general are trending, this is a good situation for somebody like Russell Wilson. And I'm excited about Russell Wilson because he's the complete package, right? You don't have any maturity questions. No. You don't have any leadership questions. This isn't going to be a guy that you're going to see out partying, early, or he's not going to be prepared for a game. This is, from a statistics, a body of work, a pedigree. He's the complete package. I mean, name me a box he doesn't check. His height, maybe he's not tall enough, but he's already won a Super Bowl.
He's the perfect representative on and off the field. He and Justin Simmons. You combine two of those guys in the same locker room, you could do a lot of great things, like the transformational leadership. And here's the thing, too, that stands out about Russ, and this is something I've really admired about him so far throughout training camp. When Russ speaks, everyone listens, but Russ also empowers other voices. It's not just like, hey, whatever, I'm the only one talking. Russ is encouraging. He's trying to show that other guys have a voice and that they should use it. That's one thing I think that really stands out that never gets talked about enough.
Yeah, I think, by empowering people around you, it's a lead by example mentality, right? If you're going in there and busting your ass and you're lifting weights and you're practicing with your receivers, you set a standard around you that, hey, if I'm going to work this hard, you got to work hard with me. We're going to do this thing together, very collaborative. So I think that's the other exciting part with Russell Wilson, excuse me.
People raise their game, right? Because if Russ is doing this, I need to start doing this. Here's the thing. We call it, the law of attraction, right? You surround yourself with the people that you want to be like, right? If you surround yourself with 5 or 6 successful people and you hang out with them and you do the same things that they're doing, you have the same habits as they do, guess what? You'll probably be the next successful person. You hang out with people that aren't successful, you hang out with people that are, running around doing stupid things, more than likely your life is going to look the same exact way. And so I think for Russell Wilson, just the way he conducts himself on the field, off the field, it sets a standard. It sets the bar even higher for guys that maybe don't have that mentality in them just yet, but he's also going through it by leading by example. He's teaching these guys how to do that, which is huge, and that can be transformational, not just on football. I think we're so fixated on football, but I think it's just in life. That's what Russell Wilson, that's what the type of effect that his leadership has.
Well, and that's the thing is I don't have a kid, I don't have young cousins or anything like that, but imagine you have a little kid, right? Danny Williams, for example. Is that not the perfect role model? Across the board, the football side of things, obviously, that he does great things on the field, but he's a good man, right? A family man.
I thought you were talking about Danny Williams at first. I was like,
Did I say Danny Bailey or Danny Williams?
you said Danny Williams.
You said Danny Williams.
Yeah, he's got a.
I know. I thought you said like, I thought Russell Wilson's like Danny Williams. I was like,
No.
I was like, there's
Danny
no
Williams-
way.
Danny Williams needs a role model like Russell Wilson.
Yes,
yeah,
he does.
Danny Williams looks up to Russell Wilson. His kids look up to
See,
Russell
okay,
Wilson.
that's where you went with that because at first I was like, Russell Wilson's like Danny Williams. I was like, I don't see it.
No. I mean, that's definitely a difference in opinion. But no, I mean, like anyone that's got like a young kid too, like you're introduced. Like imagine the one thing I've talked about with Doug and other people. Like there's been a little bit of a disconnect amongst the young fan in Broncos country the last few years. Like there's a lot of Broncos fans that were toddlers or very young that don't remember Super Bowl 50. You know, that are maybe fans of other teams, grew up watching Patrick Mahomes do his thing. You know, Josh Allen among other quarterbacks. Oh, why do we want to root for the Broncos? You know, they haven't been good in the last 5 or 6 years. Russell Wilson's going to help change that. You know, what do they call it? Bronco-mania? I think you've already seen it. The second they bring in Russell Wilson, everybody is right back onto the Broncos. Even when they were bad, everybody was talking about the Broncos. But across the board, football aside, Russell Wilson is a perfect quarterback to be the face of a franchise on and off the field.
I think that's a good point to make too. And look, he's created one of the most historic phrases now that'll follow the Denver Broncos around for their entire existence, and that's Broncos country.
Let's ride.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right, baby.
So we got that from him. I need to make that my ringtone. I really do.
That's a good one.
I really do. Probably like the one from the 9 News broadcast with Rod Mackey.
That'd be a good
That was
one.
a good soundbite.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
But it was cool because even like, you know, Russ's children afterwards were doing Broncos country, let's ride. They were doing that in the
fam,
auditorium. Like
let's
that
ride.
that is such a cool thing. But that's the thing though about Russ. Like he's transcendent. His presence is transcendent. It brings people up. And I think that's exactly what you want. And the fact that he's got trust in George Payton, he's got trust in Nathaniel Hackett, and even with his contract too, in the future, it's going to allow the Broncos to pay other guys. Like I don't know if people realize this. Like Denver for the next couple of years is getting a pretty good deal here in Russ's contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's always the opportunity, like down the road, you want to restructure it, you know, convert some into a signing bonus to free up more cap space. Guess what? You can do that.
And that's part of the marriage word that he used, you know, with this contract. 'Cause obviously he's going to get his bag and whatnot, but there's compromise, give and take, yin and yang, right? I mean, that's the thing is, you know, rising tides raise all boats, right? And I think Russell Wilson's going to be the captain of the team on the football field. You got George Payton in the front office, and of course Nathaniel Hackett running the show as the head coach. So exciting time to be a Denver Bronco fan.